Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are breaking down the specific laws that protect women's safety and dignity. We're going to get into everything from physical assault to online harassment, and my goal is that by the end of this, you'll have a really clear way to remember exactly what the law says about each of these offenses.
So what is the legal line between an unwanted advance and an actual crime? It's a question a lot of people have, and sometimes that line can feel a little blurry. But the law has actually drawn some very clear, very specific boundaries. So let's dive in and see exactly where those lines are. All right, let's kick things off with a group of offenses that all involve physical force and direct aggression. We're going to cover three key sections here. That's 74, 75, and 76. Just think of these as the legal bedrock, the foundation for protections against direct physical and verbal attacks. First up, Section 74, which deals with outraging modesty. Now, that phrase might sound a bit old-fashioned, but in legal terms, modesty just refers to a woman's sense of dignity and decency. So this isn't just about any unwanted touch. The crime is about using force with the specific intent to violate that dignity. That word, intent, is absolutely crucial here. And take a look at the consequences. The law demands a mandatory minimum of 1 year in prison, and it can go all the way up to 5 years plus a fine. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the legal system takes this. It's not a minor offense, it's a major crime with guaranteed jail time.
Okay, so from that very specific act in Section 74, we're going to broaden our scope a bit to Section 75, which is all about sexual harassment. What's interesting here is that it doesn't always have to involve physical force. This law covers a whole range of unwelcome acts that are sexual in nature. You can see how methodical the law is here, right? It basically creates a spectrum. It starts with the most physical stuff, unwelcome contact. Then it moves to verbal demands, then to visual harassment like showing pornography, and finally it lands on sexually colored remarks. This structure is super helpful for pinpointing the exact type of offense. And here's where we see a really fascinating legal distinction. For those first three acts, the punishment can be up to 3 years of rigorous imprisonment. Now, that word is key. Rigorous means the person convicted has to do hard labor in prison. But for sexually colored remarks, the sentence is shorter and doesn't have that requirement. It's a clear signal of how the law weighs the severity of these different actions. Now we move to Section 76, and this one targets an act of extreme aggression and humiliation, using force with the specific goal of disrobing a woman. The law rightly recognizes this as a profound violation of someone's dignity and their right to control their own body. And the punishment absolutely reflects that gravity, a minimum of 3 years all the way up to 7. Now compare that to Section 74, which was 1 to 5 years. The law is making it crystal clear that the intent to disrobe is seen as an even more severe crime. That's a pretty significant jump in the penalty. Okay, so we've covered direct physical confrontations. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about violations of privacy, things that are often, enabled by technology. This brings us to Section 77 and 78, which cover the crimes of voyeurism and stalking. So Section 77 is about voyeurism, and it's so important to see that this covers two different things. First, there's the act of capturing an image of a woman doing something private without her consent. But second, and this is so critical, even if she agreed to the image being taken, sharing it with anyone else without her permission is also a crime under this very same section.
And this is where the law gets really smart. It introduces a powerful tool, escalating penalties. A first-time offense gets 1 to 3 years, but a second conviction, that brings a much tougher sentence, with a minimum of 3 years. The thinking here is obvious. It's designed to specifically deter and punish repeat offenders.
Next up is Section 78, which defines stalking. And the law is really sharp here because it recognizes two modern forms of this crime. You have the physical act, following someone and trying to contact them even when they've made it clear they're not interested. And then you have the digital form, monitoring their internet use, their email, or any other kind of electronic communication. But, and this is important, the law also carves out some specific exceptions. The first two are pretty straightforward, law enforcement or if there's a legal requirement. That third one, though, reasonable conduct, that's a bit more subjective, right? So what could that mean? Well, it could be something like a private investigator who's legally gathering evidence, or maybe a journalist doing an investigation. It all comes down to the specific context. And hey, just like we saw with voyeurism, surprise, surprise, the law uses escalating penalties for stalking too.
A first offense can land someone in prison for up to 3 years, but a second conviction jumps to a maximum of 5. It really reinforces this legal strategy of getting tougher and tougher on people who repeatedly engage in this kind of creepy, invasive behavior.
All right, our final section, section 79, brings us full circle, back to that concept of modesty. But this time, it's from a totally different angle. This law isn't about physical force. It's about insults that are delivered through words, sounds, or gestures.
Section 79 is written to be intentionally broad. It covers pretty much everything from spoken words to gestures to even showing someone an object. And just like Section 74, it all hinges on that idea of insulting modesty. So what's the big difference? It's simple. Section 74 requires physical force. Section 79 does not. The crime here is the insult itself, as long as the intent is clear.
Now for the punishment, notice that it's up to 3 years of simple imprisonment plus a fine. Remember earlier we talked about rigorous imprisonment, meaning hard labor? Well, simple imprisonment means the person is jailed, but they aren't required to do that kind of manual labor. It's just another way the law fine-tunes the punishment to fit the crime.
Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. We've just walked through 6 different laws. So, to help all of this really stick in your mind, let's put everything side by side in a quick summary. Think of this as your cheat sheet for remembering these sections and what they mean.
And there you have it, all in one place. You can really start to see the patterns now, can't you? Sections 74 and 76 are the heavy hitters dealing with physical acts, and they have the toughest mandatory sentences. Then you have 77 and 78, which tackle those privacy violations with the escalating penalties for repeat offenders. And finally, sections 75 and 79 cover that broader range of harassment. This structure is really your key to remembering how all these laws fit together. So we've gone through the legal details, the section numbers, the punishments, but let's zoom out for a second. Why does knowing the difference between Section 75 and Section 79 actually matter in the real world?
Well, it all comes down to this. Knowledge of the law is a tool. It's empowerment. When you understand exactly where these legal lines are drawn, it gives you the language to name these offenses, the confidence to support victims, and the power to advocate for real accountability. This isn't just academic. It's a vital step toward building a safer, more just community for everyone.
So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you're armed with this clear legal framework, how does it change your perspective on safety, on boundaries, and on accountability? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.